I am working on an incredibly complicated curvature problem in Fusion 360 at the little car model that I'm working on. And it is way above any of my math skills before, and it's really complicated. I'm trying to get over it right now, or trying to figure it all out. But the basic problem is I have to contour this line right here. So the tool's going to come in from this angle right here, so it's going to follow that line, which is no problem because it's a flat face, follow that line, but then it gets into a problem right here because that is a curve. So you need top-down view, so the cutter comes in here, that's a curve. So in Fusion right now, you can only do 2D contours, so you can only follow this line up like this, and you can have it continue if you want, but you can't have it come down and then follow that curve all the way down here. So I got to figure out exactly how to find that line and then offset it, and then create a spline that I can trace. So you can actually see here I managed to create that, but this line is the tool where the tool follows the center line of. So the end mill comes around here, it follows this, and then this is where the end mill comes around, follows it. But you can see how it kind of bows out farther at the end here versus at the very top. It's really close to the top up here, but as it goes, it gets bigger, wider and wider and wider. So down here, it's all the way like that. And the basic idea from that is it's following the center line of the tool, not the corner of the tool. We want the corner of the tool to follow the line of the part itself. But the tool path is only going to follow the center line of the tool. So it's only going to follow where this center line is. It's not going to follow that corner. So we got to draw. The center line is going to match up. This is the start of the part. It's going to match up perfectly fine right here. But as the curve goes, we can't follow this main line. If not, this corner, if I just come down here, the corner will look like that. And this is the tool here. So the corner is gonna cut into the part itself. So I have to find that line that's gonna be offset as it curves down, and that was the complicated part. But inside of Fusion 360 here, I was able to find that by, let me just open up the sketch. Which one is it? Oh, this one. Here we go. So I was able to find that by creating a blank tool right here, or the top-down view of a tool, and then I was able to copy this line right here, if I can select it, that line, and then shift it over to match that line up with the corner of the tool, and that corner is now my center line spline. So the tool is going to come across here and it's going to follow that line. This is actually another example of a tool right here. Following that line, so the corner matches perfectly up with the part as it goes along. This has actually turned out to be a lot easier than I thought it would be. So as this tool comes around down here, you can see the gap gets bigger and bigger. Comes all the way down and curves along perfectly along that edge. So I want the tool to follow that perfectly. But then one other problem I had to figure out after this was there's another curve. So there's this curve too that has to follow. So everything matches up to where I have to follow this curve right here, and then this curve as well. So that would actually turn out to be pretty simple too. I used the surface workspace right here to create that. So I just pulled that line. When I found the line, when I found my center line spline, I pulled that center line spline, and let me finish the sketch here. I pulled the center line spline into a 2D face, and then I created a sketch from this angle and just offset it by half the tool diameter, and then I projected this directly onto that 3D surface. So when it's all finished, I just hide this. I've got the floating geometry, the floating centerline spline that I can now follow with my end mill. So if I hit finish, edit there, and then I simulate this, if I simulate it, you can see the tool comes in and it follows that spline along the curvature. Ignore the red bit there.
but the tool follows that line perfectly, even as it gets to the end here. It just follows it really nicely. And then it also follows on the other direction too. So you can see how it follows this. I have some weird thing where it's cutting into the part right here, but that's not too difficult to fix. But it curves at all these different angles, and it is just
mind-numbingly complicated. I'm just trying to figure out why this is working, because I want to be able to replicate this for the future. And so it's kind of annoying to have to create a spline for the toolpath instead of just selecting the faces and the geometry directly on the 3D model. But I know that this is something I have to learn anyway, so figuring it out now is going to be a lot easier to do within later down the line. And the downside is if I have to make any changes to the physical model itself, I'm going to have to restart this all from scratch and recreate that spline. But doing it this way is going to be a lot easier to create a toolpath that will follow that curve without trying to be a toolpath wizard and play around with the settings forever to get that to work. So using a 7-line spline is something I'm going to be trying out very soon, but it is so complicated how this works.